Good morning. Now, the show started before it did. Let me introduce who is in studio, who has been doing the show before the show. Robert Mbo is the Member of Parliament for Kathiani constituency. He's also the Deputy Minority Leader at the National Assembly. Good morning.
Morning, Sam. Morning, viewers.
Miriam Kitani is the Member of Parliament for Aldai. She's also the Vice Chairperson. Trade Committee?
Trade Committee, yes.
Good morning.
Morning, Sam. Morning, viewers.
And Gadona Mushamba is the Member of Parliament for Githunguri constituency, previously serving as Chair of CIOC.
And currently serving in the Welfare Committee. Members Welfare Committee.
Welfare.
Ndio saa zingine inaitwa catering.
Hiyo ndio chai. Catering.
Okay.
Catering.
How is your
na
service
kupanguza
so
meza.
How is it so far?
Oh, good, excellent.
Okay.
I mean, as a woman, I am happy to do some of those things that come naturally.
As we have in studio joining us, I'll be introducing him shortly, Mheshimiwa Mboko Milemba, who is the Member of Parliament for Emuhaya. He's also the chairperson of KUPPET. Right, how are you doing?
Good morning and good morning, viewers.
It's good to see you. Now, there are a lot of things that have happened, but quickly let's take a look at the papers. Daily Nation, Campaign Podium is the story that you meet, talking about the delegations hosted at State House from Boda Boda team, Nairobi Youth, Nyamira and Kisii team, Meru, Kuria West and Kuria East, Turkana, Kisii, Murang'a, and teachers. The Daily Nation puts it at 10,000 teachers. And says the President Ruto has opened the State House gates to delegations from across the country, explaining the meetings with diverse interest groups are intended to resolve their grievances and let them have a say in governance. But critics countered that the seat of power has been turned into a platform for parties and political campaigns amid queries as to the source of millions being doled out to attendees. Then on the Standard, the main story is war against Matiang'i. The Standard reporting that state machinery has been rolled out. Senior civil servants are flexing power, money changing hands, and threats issued, all aimed at clipping Matiang'i's rising stature in Nyanza and across the country. Then sleuths flying blind in city without CCTV, referencing the events of last week when Wakili Chalo Mbovu was shot and killed in Karen, and now reports indicating that there are no cameras on Magadi Road, but also the cameras that are in the city are not necessarily helpful to the investigations of what is going on. Now, it has also been that week, and you'll shortly be listening to the voices from some of the events that have been happening at State House. Teachers were the latest on Saturday. They had quite a meeting there. Part of the things they resolved is even signing an MOU with the Affordable Housing Board that 20% of affordable houses will be earmarked for the teaching fraternity. With us in studio is Mboko Milemba, who is the chairperson of KUPPET. He had the advantage of being there. And Mheshimiwa, thank you for joining us. But what can you tell us about that meeting on Saturday, some of those very many commitments, and how exactly is the Affordable Housing Board going to ensure that 20% of housing units go to the teachers?
Oh, very well, and thank you. On Saturday, 10,000 teachers were in State House, and I was part of the leaders of that delegation, and they met the president, and we want to thank the president for that invitation. And it has also been a tradition that after CBA signing, we usually visit the president. In 2016, we visited Uhuru, and in 2011, we also visited the president. Because always when we are doing the CBAs, there will be limits which we cannot decide. And you'll find the Teacher Service Commission and other authorities on the table indicating that this one we must make further reference. So this time, I think the president was magnanimous, not just to meet the officials, but invited 10,000 teachers. It was massive. And indeed, we were able to conclude CBA. For me, it was very, very good. And the achievements that the teachers got were very, very good. For instance, CBA, which was 33.8 billion, was to be paid in 4 years. And after interaction with the president, we came up with an agreement that be paid within 2 years. If that happens, that is very, very good for the teachers of Kenya, because you remember when the CBA was signed by ourselves, the teachers were saying they had gotten 50 bob. To mean the amounts per face was very small. But now in 2 phases, that will be magical.
Yeah.
There has been the issue of career progression, which has been the main reason why we, even in Parliament, always speak about stagnation of teachers. And this career progression, you take 3 years to get to an interview and you're not sure whether you are getting it. So you may even, to go through the system, it takes 30 years. It was also brokered within that particular meeting. And it's going to be reviewed with the intention of removing it. There are teachers who are acting. Teachers are acting everywhere, principals, deputies, and senior teachers, and even HODs. And also that was brokered, that those teachers who are acting, a calculation be done by the Teacher Service Commission to know that how much does it require to make them full, permanent, and pensionable in the acting places. For me, that was magical. And then there was the issue of the teachers who are in ASAL and who are mainly also affected by the same issues of acting. Their issues were also mitigated. And still then came the housing. You know, for the housing to take place, it was a very difficult decision by the teachers of Kenya. And I remember vividly, again, we were called to State House. And that time, the discussion was not easy. It was very difficult because the teachers were not accepting the issue of housing. But finally, after a long time of brokerage and talking and discussion, the teachers agreed, yes, let it proceed. But with a promissory note that something will be done on their pay slip in order to make sure they're comfortable with those deductions that were coming. And indeed, I think the meeting on Saturday realized that, including the 10% that came earlier. So then, teachers contribute 13% of what that housing project gets. And teachers are the religious contributors.
How do you make that calculation, that teachers contribute 30%?
13%.
13%?
13%.
Okay.
Of all the contributions housing,
yeah,
teachers' contribution is 13%. That's our business, that's what we calculate. And we can even give you the specifics that every month they give, is it 900 million? Yeah, so that one we can do it behind the curtain.
So when you get a commitment that you're going to get 20% of housing, is that a fair allocation?
Well, originally we had been given 10%, but after further discussion, we came to 20%. So let's begin there.
That's what I'm asking. You're contributing 13% of the resources.
Yes.
You're being allocated 20%.
Yes.
But the contributions, it's by all Kenyans that have the capacity to do so.
Yeah.
They are doctors.
Yeah.
They are police officers.
I don't know if you are of the view that we have been given too much, but I think we have been given 20%.
Yeah.
Let's have the 20%. And discussions will continue going on, and we also see what it means for everybody else. But for now, the teachers have been given the 20%.
So how will that be done, the commitment to have houses?
We are forming a board and committee between the trade unions and the housing ministry officials, and do the calculations and then spread them around the country.
Okay. Yeah,
and in the event that there could be a feeling that we are having too much, we shall see also what other players will be saying. And we are open to discussions. But even with the intention of getting more, should it be available.
All right. Mheshimiwa Mbui, what do you make of those concessions that have been made?
You know, first and foremost, I think what I'm seeing in this country is quite shocking. You know, I really don't trust the executive that much, because this is a team that is known for making a lot of promises during a period preceding an election. I remember before the last election, we were told there would be a bottom-up arrangement where everybody at the lower bracket would be raised. Manamambogas would have supermarkets, border-borders would have vehicles. And 3 years down the road, that has been, you know, a pipe dream. Unfortunately, you know, the lies, I think, in my opinion, continue. On this matter of what is going on in State House, I think basically what we are being shown is an old script where politicians want to make sure that they turn everybody into a kind of a pauper, then suddenly start handing out, you know, giving out handouts. And I'll say this. You can see the deliberate attempt from this regime to make everybody poorer. and clearly, how do you do that? When they came into power, and I remember just before the last election, The president and a team of almost 30, 40 members of parliament stood in and did a press conference and talked about the cost of fuel. It was a very specific press conference. And he was there saying, you know, the cost of fuel in this country is higher than Uganda, and yet Uganda's fuel goes through Kenya, and therefore there is a problem with the tax regime of fuel. But what does he do when he becomes president? He raises the VAT from 8% to 16%. He raises road maintenance levy fund on fuel from 17 shillings to 25 shillings per litre. Basically, you know, totally going against what he had said before. He has also gone into introduce the minimum tax so that people pay more. He's also increased pay as you earn. He's changed the funding model of universities such that you know, and the cost of education before, university education was fairly affordable, because I remember we could through CDF support quite a number. Suddenly the fees were raised, and some arrangement of a funding model came about. Generally, what I'm saying is that Kenyans are poorer as a result of this regime. So what do? You make people poorer, then you start dishing them out handouts. Yeah. And what does he do? He starts a program of empowerment. So he comes to the villages, and he gives, you know, border people are given money when they share out. They get like 200, 300, 400, 500 shillings. Women groups are also given money. Teachers now are called to State House. They're given 10,000 shillings each. You know, at the end of the day, what he's doing is actually giving people handouts so that he can buy the next election. Unfortunately, people are sharper than that.
They were given 10,000 shillings each?
Teachers were given 10,000 shillings each. That was, I think, bus fare reimbursement. Unfortunately, by the time they were done with that, I think it was late in the night. Some of them really struggled to get back to their homes. This is a script that happens even in empowerment. My own constituency, when they came there, the money was being dished out, and I think some chaos erupted, and there was a fight. Tear gas thrown all over the villages in my constituency, up to almost 10, 11 p.m. So the problem is, you make people poorer so that they can be dependent on you, so that you can be dishing out handouts. Unfortunately, what is happening is this. People are wiser than what the regime thinks. When you call us and give us handouts, and yet capitation for our children, a parent with 2 children in school, whose capitation has dropped by 6,000 per year for each child, that's about 12,000 that you lose. Yep. And then you're given a handout of 500 shillings. Honestly, that's, you know, it doesn't help. And so I want to ask that let the president go back to doing his work. And we are being told here by Omboko Milema that they were signing a CBA. What kind of CBA is witnessed by 10,000 people? What kind of conversation or meeting or discussion can you have with 10,000 people? That's a baraza. That's a public baraza. There's absolutely no discussion you can have with 10,000 people. Right. 10,000 people will just sit there and listen to you, because there is no way you can have a conversation. You want to have a meeting, you meet with the leaders of the unions. Omboko Milema and his team are able to midwife this process. But then calling all these teachers to the meeting, you can say that the teachers were called so that now we can make it happen. They will not make it happen because of the numbers. This is optics so that you can show Kenyans that teachers are on your side. But I can tell you, teachers are not going to be fooled that way.
Okay. How much was the transport?
I'm disappointed with my colleague. Why would you reduce teachers to just 10,000? And that's what they went to do in State House. If teachers were given a reimbursement, even if it was for 5,000, no, teachers never went to State House really for just money.
So how much was it?
Teachers were going to look at their issues. Are you aware that P1 teachers are now going to be employed? The P1 teachers, Mr. Mbui, Honorable Mbui, whom have been struggling in Parliament, the ones of 2011, 2013, 2012, my friend, it's not about... There had been a freeze on employment of the P1 teachers. And some of them are retiring before they even work. So in the next session of employment of teachers, as part of what we agreed at State House, they'll start getting employment.
When?
That's during the next financial year. Are you aware then that also, are you aware that then again capitation, which I myself...
No, we will get to that because I want to hear from the other panelists. But I just wanted that clarification. How much was the transport reimbursement?
Transport reimbursement for teachers was 10,000. 10,000
shillings. So that's 100 million shillings.
And I think Mr. Mbui is looking at teachers as beggars. He owes an apology to teachers of Kenya. They never went just for reimbursement. They went to discuss the issue.
I'm asking as a statement of fact. So 10,000 times 10,000 teachers is 100 million shillings, right?
Very well.
Good.
But some just so that we can clarify this matter.
Sorry.
Just so that I can clarify this matter, Sam. It's not about, because the way he's put it goes totally against what I've said. I have said teachers' matters are supposed to be handled by the leaders of the teachers' delegation. When you take 10,000 teachers to State House, you cannot honestly tell me that every one teacher who went there to State House was going to negotiate anything. What is the purpose of leadership? Okay. I represent Kadhiani constituency. Should members of Kadhiani constituency all come to Parliament so that they can speak on their own behalf? You are a leader of the churches, of the teachers. Go to State House and whatever and have those meetings. But you don't invite all the teachers to come speak for themselves.
But why would be one heart that a few teachers want to step
That was a public baraza.
On your take, because there's some few commitments, let's actually hear another commitment that the president made on capitation that has been quite a thorn because, like Mheshimiwa Mboko says, they have not been able to finance in its entirety. I think it was Mheshimiwa Mboi. Let's hear what the president said about capitation.
Whatever the gap is, we have a gap of almost 800 in primary school and a gap of about 5,000 in secondary schools. Sindio? So what we will do, the next financial year, we will reduce that gap by half and close the gap in the following financial year. The Ministry of Education is properly informed so that whatever resources we have to find from wherever place, we have to close that gap in the next 2 cycles.
Mheshimiwa Kitani, when you look at this, because it's Parliament that shares resources, in the last budget, the current budget, 702 billion shillings is going to education. Yes. It's already too high. It's about 28% of the national revenue. Yes. Those commitments the president has made have an implication to the cost of education. I mean, to the cost of running government and the budget itself. Yes. How do you implement it?
First and foremost, I think we first need to appreciate the role a teacher does to everybody, even me and you. If it is not for that teacher, I don't think we'd be seated here today, because these teachers have sacrificed a lot for the people or the work they do to make sure that we become good citizens. Number 2 is that when these teachers came to State House, I think for them it was historical. It is something that has never happened. And State House, as it is known, or as it has always been known, is where the seat of power is, and only very few people are allowed to go to State House. When more people get to State House, then we demystify what this State House is all about, because it is fine, the seat of power, but it is where our country is. We want to be there, everyone. Even I, myself, and yourself, I'm sure Sam will be happy when you are called to State House. On the issues
that... Please leave me out of this, but carry on.
On the issues that have been raised on capitation and the cost of budget, we will want to appreciate first that in 2022, when this government came into power, there was very little resources in our coffers. And we were struggling to get a budget that could be able to meet just the basic needs, not putting into consideration that we had very huge loans that had been committed by previous regimes and were maturing, I think, almost immediately when this government came into power. And as we speak today, a lot of things have stabilized, and our economy is now back on track. If you look at the ratings that have come from even IMF itself, the inflation rate has come down. We are now back from the red. I think at the time when we were coming into office, when this government was coming into office, we were in the red. But now we've been rated. Recently, we were rated, I think, B, meaning that we are now much better than we were. So now that we are much better, it means then we are able to then get more resources. And when those resources come, we are then able to then do what government is supposed to do. One of the things that is supposed to be happening, I think you saw before Parliament went on recess, was removing Kenya Pipeline from being a total government entity and being delisted to become a public entity. And that in itself, government is divesting in it and getting resources that it then uses to do what is supposed to be done, the social capital that government is supposed to do. One being the cost, the issues that we've talked about for teachers, because teachers are government employees. So the resources that the president is talking about, looking forward futuristic, he can see that he is able to then get those resources. And when those resources come, a portion of it then goes again back to the various sectors. It's not only the teachers, even the doctors and everybody else will get a cut or a piece of their cake when this happens, because our resources, in fact, if you look at most sectors, even agriculture, most of the activities in agriculture are now improving. For the first time this year, actually our maize production has really increased, and therefore the cost of imports has come down. Sugar, I think we were importing a lot of sugar, we have reduced. So when you look at those reductions, that gets back into the economy and helps to increase the budget, so the capacity. Our budget this year was 3.4 trillion. We expect our budget next year to be a more expanded budget.
Explain to me, when we're not importing as much maize as we used to, how does that translate to money available for the budget?
Because when you import maize, it is actually government that puts in a lot of money for the maize to come into this country, especially for areas where you have to feed people. You know, there's the responsibility of government to make sure that its people are fed. So if there is no food, then government chips in and gets food into the table.
No. If you're talking about import duty, duty-free imports of maize.
Yes.
It is when you traders that buy that maize.
When you talk about duty-free import, what have you done? You have denied the exchequer revenue that it would have gotten from maize that would have been imported.
You've denied the exchequer revenue, but government has not spent.
No. When you deny the exchequer, that budget, that money that you would have given the exchequer to budget for other resources is now not there. And that is, like, for example, in maize, sugar.
Let's break this down. So duty-free maize means that you are allowed to import without paying as a portion of the duty, either all of it or a portion of the duty.
It's usually all of it, and duty is about 25%.
Meaning import duty will not accrue to the revenues of the country.
Yes.
If you grow more maize, meaning you don't need to import, there's no avenue of losing duty or not losing duty, so you don't earn anything.
No, when you now have maize within yourselves, then the food is available and people now buy within themselves the food. But now when you import, it means that government, remember we have not planted, so we don't have internal resources. So someone has to spend money to go to the shop and buy food. So that money that they would have spent to go to the shop and buy food, that food has been subsidized. In the process of subsidizing, because you have bought it at a lower price.
Free are not the same.
No, you have bought it at a lower price. When you have bought it duty free, the price has been brought down. It's not going to be the normal price you'd have bought if there was duty paid and total everything paid. Assuming a bag of maize right now, or maize right now in the shop is about 130 shillings. If we are to import maize and there is duty paid on it, remember the importer, who is a trader, will have to impose all those taxes onto the cost to the consumer at the shop. But if you do not, if that importer is told, then we are going to subsidize, then it means the price that they'll finally import and sell at the shop will be a similar price to the price that would have been produced locally here, because the price would come to about the same. So this difference is what now the taxman has lost. And when the taxman loses that, it goes to affect directly to the budget and the figures that we have that are going to finance the resources or finance the activities of the country.
Mheshimiwa Mushomba.
That's an academic question, and possibly it will require a model of economics.
I'll come back to you, but Mheshimiwa Mushomba, your take about those commitments, the delegations to State House, but also where we are going to get money. Because quick math, like for instance, the transport reimbursement is 100 million shillings. I actually don't know how it's voted for by Parliament for that. And the other commitments, whether it's on capitation, that you're going to reduce this gap in the next 1 or 2 years, how do you finance that?
First of all, thank you for having me, and good morning to viewers. I campaigned with Dr. William Ruto, and I was present when he was committing himself to so many commitments. And if I remember very well, the last time I counted what he had committed himself to, we had over 270 commitments. And just the other day, I was looking at a report that was done by Muzarendo Trust Evaluation. And they did an analysis, which I tend to agree with, that out of the 270 commitments, pre-elections, commitment William Ruto did, only 4 have been fulfilled, 107 never started, 22 commitments completely broken, 100 of them are in the process. And unfortunately, issues of capitation and teachers' CBA agreements are part of what we had promised during the campaigns. And I am a teacher by profession. I am a basic teacher. And I reasoned it with matters teachers. And I appreciate teachers in the role they play in the society. And I saw a big delegation in State House. And I saw teachers dancing. And while they were dancing, I was wondering whether they know that the CBA that they were celebrating about touches on issues of hardship allowances. And I'm happy that my colleague, Mheshimiwa Omboko, is present. And having come from the teaching fraternity leadership, the committee that is supposed to be dealing with issues, teachers, and matters social welfare, would actually confirm whether the CBA that allegedly was signed in State House, or rather was discussed in State House, touched on matters, hardship allowance. Over 118,000 teachers in 35 counties and over 129 sub-counties are going to be affected by the proposal and the report that was read in Parliament by the Prime Secretary, Cabinet Secretary, 600 shillings, where the highest paid D5 teacher gets a hardship allowance of 38,100. According to the report that was read by Musalia Mudavadi, who is the Prime Cabinet Secretary, the 2019 Interagency Technical Committee report on the reclassification of hardship areas in the Republic of Kenya is recommending that the government want to reclassify some areas, some counties and sub-counties into extreme and others to moderate areas. So I don't know what criteria was being used, but I'm not here to discuss the criteria. I just want to understand that the government of Kenya of the day is seeking to save 6 billion shillings from hardship allowances that is normally paid to civil servants. When I talk about civil servants, not only teachers, even police, doctors, and others who receive this hardship allowance. So when they were celebrating in State House, were they celebrating that now they have negotiated that this reclassification should stop? Maybe Malemba Oboko should tell us, Mheshimiwa. Were they celebrating that the regions that were previously hardship regions are now going to be dropped? Because I understand, for example, from where I come from in Kiambu, some areas that were traditionally hardship zones are going to be dropped. And I read the report. It was very alarming. You remember, when I was in Parliament, I actually stood and refused to agree with the report. For example, in my area, Kiambu, which apparently look like we are an urban county. Areas of Deya Rimuru, Kabete, Kikuyu, areas of Muranga, Gatanga, areas of Nyeri, Kieni East, Embu, Bere South, Laikipia East, Laikipia West, Laikipia North, Tharaka Nithi, the whole county. All those areas that have been traditionally extreme hardship areas are going to be reviewed and they are going to be reclassified. And therefore, a lot of these 118 teachers are going to lose their allowance. And the government plans to save 6 billion. So should this kind of discussion, heavy discussion, be taken to State House? And should they be handled by 10,000 teachers engaging one president? Do you expect any productive results from that kind of an engagement? So when Mheshimiwa tells us that they went to State House to discuss CBA, who executed this point? How was it executed? Did they finally agree that teachers are going to get their allowances or they are going to drop? Who allowed them to reclassify? Did the teachers that were in State House, the actual representation of the teaching fraternity that is supposed to go to negotiate for the review of these hardship areas? You know, we must separate issues of politics from development issues. We must separate. What I saw in State House was a meeting to impress, to perceive, to create a perception that the president has support of massive numbers of teachers. But the critical issues that are supposed to be discussed, where they're supposed to be discussed, are never discussed. Okay. This report was supposed to be executed in Parliament. Unfortunately, matters that are supposed to be executed in Parliament are not handled in Parliament, are taken to State House. What is State House? State House is not Parliament. State House is not a house where we deliberate and debate on matters teachers. State House is not the house that's supposed to make decisions on capitation. I have seen the president talk about capitation and saying, oh, we are going to make sure that we allocate the next financial year. He is not the person who deals with budget. Article 95 of the Kenyan Constitution here is very clear. Budgets are allocated by the National Assembly. So when the president stands in front of teachers in State House and commits that we are going to review capitation, we are going to make sure next year we allocate more, he is not the one who allocates. It is Parliament. So he's actually telling the world and telling Kenyan, he has actually taken over the role of Parliament. He is actually now becoming a dictator. A dictator is somebody who just doesn't care what the Constitution says. So I am actually very disappointed that my colleague teachers are now being taken for a ride, that teachers can be paraded in State House just for a meal, that teachers can be paraded in State House to go and dance politically, because that was a political event, that civil servants now no longer care what the Constitution says about their boundaries and can now walk in State House and go and dance on matters capitation, on matters children welfare, on matters that are really sensitive to the livelihood of Kenyans.
Now, we'll continue this conversation because there's so many other commitments that have been made in meetings in State House. I just want you to listen to what the president spoke about when he was speaking of the many housing projects that are going on as we take a break.
Look at what we have done in housing. Today, we have issued contracts for markets, for hostels, for housing, worth 600 billion. 600 billion. Not money borrowed from anybody. Our own resources. That whole housing thing you see, not a single shilling has been borrowed from anywhere. If you had asked me to go and look for 600 billion shillings to come and do housing, ningetembea na magoti in all the towns and all the cities, and I would not get it. Taenda Marekani, when the NSSF, when ile ingine inaitwa ni IMF, when the ingine inaitwa World Bank, you will not get it. But look at what our own resources, from our own money, look at what we can do.